Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. Last lecture, we talked about scenic design and costume design, and today we're going to be talking about lighting and sound design. The one type of designer I won't be covering within our design unit is projection design, as that's still a relatively new thing of the last 10 years, but is still very important to design processes. So let's dive right into talking about lighting and sound design. First of all, when you consider the different lighting, whether we talk about your home or business or where you might work, or specifically about theater, what I want you to consider are the things such as colors, shadows, and illumination. So when you look at these production photos and you see the distinct differences in color, shadow, and illumination, how does it perhaps change your impression or perception of the scene? Now, these photos are from a high school production of Arabian Nights that I directed many years ago. And as you look at it, and it's all the same production, you'll notice with each scene, the lighting, colors, illumination, shadows, all of that change because I'm attempting to highlight different things. If you know anything about Arabian Nights, the story, hopefully you'll know that it originated from the book 1001 Arabian Nights, in which Scheherazade attempts to forestall the ruler from killing her by telling a new story each night. So each of these scenes that you see represented in these production photos represent a different story and different individuals. Here is the ruler. Here is Scheherazade. Here's Scheherazade's little sister. And so what begins to happen here is she's telling a story, so they are in the background, and one of the stories, not necessarily what you see in either of these images, is being acted out in the foreground. So the colors that are being chosen, the type of shadows that are being used, are to represent who's involved in the story, who's not involved in the story, and the nature of the story that's being told. These are just some things that lighting can do for us. So let's talk about lighting's history. All right. For millennia, the sun was the primary source of light in theater. So productions had to be performed outdoors or with natural sunlight. We didn't always have electricity, you know. Candles were not necessarily the best thing to use. Gaslight was definitely possible, especially starting in the 19th century, but you had to be careful how that was used so that you didn't start a fire. So things were performed outdoors in amphitheaters or open-roofed theaters. And dialogue and stage tricks then had to be used to indicate a different time of day. So you would try to use some type of dialogue or stage trick to represent something occurring at night. Perhaps as a stage trick, a dark cape would be held over the performers to indicate something being done at night. Now, in the 17th century, when theater started to move indoors, you had candles and gas lamps that were used to create stage lighting, and they didn't do much other than just throw light onto the stage. By the end of the 19th century, as electricity and incandescent light became available, that's when we could start to control intensity, color, and shadow. So, one thing you should be aware of is that lighting design as we use it today is a relatively new thing. And what I mean by relatively new is that if theater is thousands of years old, which it is, and we know this from a previous lecture, but lighting design is really maybe less than 150 years old. And by light design, I mean the ability to control intensity, color, and shadow of light on stage during a performance. Then we have to admit 150 versus thousands of years, lighting design is new. It's a baby. Okay? So let's jump right in. What are the objectives? We had 7 objectives for our costume designer in our last lecture. We have 7 objectives here for our lighting designer. Of course, primary, provide visibility. If the audience cannot see what's going on stage, we have a problem. The lighting designer, unless that was the intent, failed. Number 2, to reveal shape and form. Possibly more than a scene designer or costume designer. Well, I shouldn't say possibly. I would say definitely more than a scene or costume designer. Lighting designers can create and reveal shape and form on stage based upon the types of lenses as well as other elements that they can use on lighting instruments to control light. 3, they provide a focus on stage and they create a visual composition. When you just had candles and you just had gas lamps, you were just throwing light on stage. But now what we can do is we can choose what parts of the stage we want to illuminate and how we want to do so. Well, that creates focus. We want the audience to look here, not there. We want them to see this and experience this emotion. Okay? 4th, it creates mood and reinforces style. Color choice, shadows, intensity, all of that helps to create mood, helps to look at style. Of course, time and place are important. They establish a rhythm of visual movement, so perhaps as performers move across stage, light follows them, and maybe the performer starts over here, and the light's intense here, and the rest of the stage is dark, and as the performer begins to move, the darkness becomes light where the performer is, and behind them that was lit up is now dark, and that continues. So, visual movement. And of course, a reinforcement of a central image of the metaphor. Look at this photo, production photo I have here from Arabian Nights. Okay, as you'll see, we have shadows in the background of the characters in the scene. In this play, I kept every single actor, and there were about 18 actors. They were all on stage the entire time. But not all of them were always involved in every story being told. So I brought those actors who were in the process of creating one of Scheherazad's stories downstage, and the others had to be active listeners in the background. And we studied the period of time in which Arabian Nights is set, not just for costuming in the scenic environment, but also to attempt to understand how they sat and lounged around. And notice the color choices establish mood, shadows, intensity, all of that, I hope, allows you to see that this actor down front is going to be moving stage right, moving into light. The rest of these actors upstage are very intently listening and are in shadows and the colors of of reds and magentas here are chosen specifically to represent the story being listened to. We have an actor downstage who has focus as well on what's going on, trying to incorporate these objectives. So what's the process like? Every designer, just like the director, has to start with reading the script. Just as you as a student have to listen to the lecture and take notes, designers and directors read the script and they develop ideas. They develop their feelings about it. They discuss the concept with the director. We know what the director's concept is. We talked about concept for scenic and costume. Well, the lighting designer also develops a concept for what they want to accomplish in conjunction with the director's concept. They consult with the other designers to learn shape and color and placement. It's really important to know where the scenic environment will be, where there are walls, where there are doors, where there are downstage anchors and other furniture pieces. They must attend rehearsals in order to know the stage blocking of the actors and the set pieces. And ultimately, they develop what's called a lighting plot. We had a ground plan for scenic designers. Lighting designers have a lighting plot, which is the plan that illustrates the location and color of each lighting instrument and the type of instrument that's going to be used. So, when it comes to light, there are 4 properties that every lighting designer is concerned with: intensity, color, distribution, and movement. Color is probably something you expected. Intensity, although maybe not that word, but the concept, probably something you expected. Distribution, movement, maybe unexpected for you. So what do I mean by this? Intensity refers to the brightness or the dimness of the light. And these are controlled by what we refer to as dimmers. You have a sliding switch that you can adjust to get however intense you want something, from 0 to 100%. And it goes in percentages. That's how we describe the intensity. 0 to 100% of the capability of the instrument. Color refers to the color filters or color gels that might be used. Distribution refers to the position and the type and the angle of each instrument. So what instrument is going to be placed where? How is it going to be angled? How will it be positioned? What is it pointing at? And then movement. How will we use light to change focus on the stage? Now, lighting design, unlike scenic and costume design, is divided according to controllable qualities of light and functions of stage light. So, what is the designer able to control? They're able to control intensity, color, direction, and movement. Direction and distribution. What are the functions then of the light? The function is visibility, modeling, focus, and mood. So to make things visible, to shape what's on stage, that's modeling, focus, to direct where the audience should pay attention to, and mood, to develop an emotional response from the audience. Those are the functions of light. As a designer, you cannot control the emotional response. You can't control the modeling, the visibility, and the focus. Those are things that the light has to do. What we can control are how intense, what color, what's the direction, and what's the movement to attempt to enhance the functions. So the controllable qualities of light are used to enhance and develop and create what the functions of light are supposed to do. I hope that makes sense. Now, let's talk about types of stage lights. First, we have the ellipsoidal reflector spotlight, also known as an ERS. This is a bright, hard-edged spotlight which could have a gobo put in. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And you are able to have the edges of this light adjusted through focus. So you can make it big and round. You can bring the edges in however you want to do. This is the most common and most used light instrument. Then we have what are called soft edge spotlights. This is called a Fresnel. Fresnel is the last name of the individual who developed this light. So yes, it starts with a capital F and the S is silent. Fresnel. A Fresnel is usually a much shorter, boxier light, and it's used for top and backlighting positions. Then we have floodlights, strip lights, border lights. These are typically longer lights that are used to illuminate large sections of scenery or cyclorama. And then if you have been to concerts or any type of production today, you are probably very familiar with seeing automated or moving lights. Well, until 20 years ago, not so popular. Today, you probably can't imagine attending something without automated or moving lights. And these are the most versatile. They can automatically change focus and color depending upon how they are programmed. So, lighting instruments are generally divided into two categories, what we call a conventional light instrument and a digital instrument. So a conventional light would be the ellipsoidal reflector spotlight, the ERS, or the Fresnel. They operate on a single dimmer switch, and they can have only one color based upon the color gel that we put on it. And it has only a single position. However we direct it, whatever shape we make the light, that's all it can do. Digital lights are DMX, address assigned instruments. DMX refers to digital multiple X. Okay, when we wire stages, we set up a digital universe. In a digital universe, you have up to 512 channels. Each channel controls a different element of an instrument, of a digital instrument. Those elements could be color changes, they could be movements, they could be gobos, etc. A theater space can have more than one universe. So, I know this is confusing. Here's what happens. When you hang a digital instrument and you plug it in, you don't just plug it into a power source. You also have to plug it into a digital universe. And you have to know if it's going into universe 1 or universe 2 or universe 3, however many universes that theater environment is wired for, because it has a max of 512 channels. Here's why that's important. A big automated mover may require 30 of those 512 channels because each channel controls something. There might be one channel that controls it moving right or left, one channel that controls it moving up or down, one channel that controls it rotating, one channel that controls color, one channel that controls certain gobos that are inside. So, do you see what I'm saying? So each digital instrument is designed to have a certain number of channels, with each channel doing something specifically. Think of it this way, okay? Think of your universe as the internet, and you have a maximum of 512 lines that can be plugged into that internet, with each line doing something different. And perhaps your iPad plugged into that internet requires 10 lines. Your smartphone requires 4 lines. Your laptop requires 30 lines. So 10, 4, 30, all right, 44. Your Roku requires 8 lines. So 44, 52. All right, so with those 4 things, I've used 52 channels within that internet. And there were 512 lines available. Does that analogy make a little bit of sense? I hope it does. All right, so let's take a look at what I'm talking about. All right. This is what the ERS, the ellipsoidal reflector spotlight, looks like. Typically, it's elongated. The barrel, this is what we call this right here. The barrel can be extended or contracted in. See these little handles here? 1, 2, 3, and there's a 4th one on the back you can't see. These are shutters that you can move in or out and move a little bit across, about not quite 90 degrees, maybe about 70 degrees, each one of them, to shape the light. See, there's a clip on the end because we can put in a frame that holds a gel. The gel being how we choose the color. Okay? So this is the ellipsoidal. This is a strip light I was talking about. It's a type of digital light, and it can be angled up, down, and is typically used to light up a large section of wall space, of scenery, a backdrop. Here's the Fresnel. Notice the difference between the ellipsoidal and the Fresnel. The Fresnel is very short. The Fresnel does not have the ability to shape the light like we do here on the ellipsoidal. We can put a color gel on here. These flaps you see on the outside are called barn doors. This is how we shape the light. So where there are internal shutters on the ellipsoidal, the Fresnel has to make use of external shutters called barn doors. Here is an example of an automated digital fixture that rotates, moves, changes colors, all those things. Here is your lighting console. Each of these sliders is a dimmer, representing, so allowing you to adjust intensity and turn things on, off. And here's a gobo. Here's one example of a gobo. A gobo is a round piece of metal that has a design laser cut into it. And this can be it can be slid into an ellipsoidal, an ERS, and it slips in right up here where my arrow is. And when you put that on the scenic environment, you get a shape. So here, I used this gobo in order to create the image of a chessboard on the scenic environment for the play Dark Play or Stories by Boys by Carlos Murillo that I directed, which is a play that is very much about mind games. Okay. Now, I talked about a lighting plot. So, here is an example of a lighting plot. I wish this represented the plot for our theater there. It doesn't. I wasn't able to get it, so I made use of one that I had in hand. All right. So in this lighting plot, for this proscenium stage, it doesn't show any of the fixtures. This is a clean plot, so none of the fixtures are hung. Over the stage itself, it has what are called 4 on-stage electric battens, battens. A batten is what you hang a light to. There are 7 catwalks for lighting, 11 catwalks total. So over the audience, there are 11 total catwalks, 7 of which lights could be hung on. On the stage, there are 8 floor pockets. So set into the floor are 4 pockets that have electrical circuitry in them, so you could plug lights into. 4 on stage right, 4 on stage left. And this theater has 3 universes. So take 3 times 512 gives you the total number of channels that could potentially be used when hanging a light design in this theater. Now, lighting designers use different images to develop inspiration. Now, for Wild Party, which I've talked about in several lectures, the lighting designer, Anthony Palecchia, showed me these images after he had taken time to think about the concept that I wanted to look at. Remember, I talked about the concept of conquest. 1920s, I wanted to incorporate shadows. I wanted texture. And so as he began his research, these are the types of images he started to find and was going to use to inspire him. I wanted to use shapes of light coming in through windows. I told him I was not afraid of shadows. I like this shadow that we see in these two, in all of these images actually, because it changes focus for where we should give our attention. Here are 3 more images that he used to look at how we could change mood and incorporate light and illumination and shadows. And again, another 3 images, because we had a fire escape that was going to be used. We had Art Deco elements that were going to be incorporated, so shadows and lines are going to be adding texture. I've previously given you access to the production photos of Wild Party on my YouTube channel. I suggest you go ahead and take a look at that video again. This time, now since we've talked about scenic design and costume design and lighting design, look at how those 3 all come together in those production photos and see if there's cohesion. Okay? And then finally, here is a lighting plot on that stage for which I just showed you, in which the lighting instruments now have been placed by the lighting designer. This plot would be given to a master electrician or production electrician. So the lighting designer determines what instruments are going to be used, where they're going to be placed, and then creates the lighting design. The master electrician or production electrician, different theaters use a different term, means the same thing, is the electrician in charge of the crew who are responsible for hanging every single instrument exactly where the designer wants it, wiring it so that they all work, programming the lighting console initially so that when the lighting designer hits 23, the light that designer 20 wants on when he turns on 23 is the correct light according to this plot, because everything is numbered. And then the production electrician or master electrician also operates the crew when it comes to focusing each individual light. And then they are there at the start of every production to make sure every instrument works. And then when the production's over, they're responsible for leading the crew to take everything down, put it away. Part of this plot is to list each instrument and how many of each instrument is going to be used. And the photo of me is covering this up, so I apologize, but behind the video image of me is a color summary of all the colors that are going to be used. Okay, what you see here are 3 boom stands that had to be built and placed on the scenic environment. Boom stand here, 1, 2, and 3. All things the designer wanted. So, the designer gives to the production electrician the hookup plan of they want in channel 151, so they want the lighting console to be programmed so that channel 157 has programmed into it an ETC light, unit number 16, that's on catwalk number 1. All right, so let's go back. Catwalk 1 is right here. And if we count over, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's this light right here. That has to be programmed to 157. So the production electrician programs the board so that each channel corresponds to a specific instrument according to the designer's wish. So that the designer can then just work with these channel numbers. And they will know they are getting the light that they want. So this is what that paperwork looks like. This is the channel hookup. They also get what's called an instrument schedule. The instrument schedule tells you on batten 3, this is what's hung, and this is the order. Batten 11, this is what's hung, and this is the order. And they are numbered from stage right to stage left, 1 through 17. So batten 3, if I go back here, batten number 3, which is right here, batten 3, has 17 instruments on it. Batten 11 has 15 instruments. Batten 17 has 2 instruments. Okay, so the channel hookup is the order of channel numbers with the instruments. The instrument schedule tells you on each catwalk, and on each batten, or on each torm, what lights are being hung. The color schedule is another paperwork piece that says, all right, I'm going to use color. This is Roscoe 58. Roscoe is a brand of colors. I'm going to have 4 of them, and they are going to correspond to these instruments on these catwalks that happen to have been programmed into this channel. Roscoe 370 is also going to have 4. Roscoe 76 is only going to have 1. Okay? Just wanted to show you examples of this paperwork. And then, if you have DMX, digital instruments, the production electrician, or master electrician, has to keep track of each fixture, know how many channels each fixture uses. So this fixture is called a C changer. It uses 4 channels. An ETC fire uses 8. A chroma key uses 4, okay? They have to determine the address. So this C changer is going to start address 1. It's going to end with address 4 because it uses 4 channels. This C changer then is going to start with address 10. Now, could we have started with 5? Sure. But we left space in case we need to put something else in there. All right. And so they determine the addresses because each of these has to then be programmed according to this. And this is all going to be wired into Universe 2. I just want to show you the work that they do. Okay? Now, here is some sample production photos from the production I've just been showing you the paperwork for and the lighting plot up. And I want you to see how the light comes to play here to create focus, to create mood, shape, and form. Okay, please just watch the different images here. And just so you know, for this production, I was the master electrician. I wasn't the director. I wasn't the lighting designer. I was the person that the lighting designer gave the lighting plot to, gave all the paperwork to, and was the person responsible for determining the channels, programming the board, but most importantly, leading my team to hang and wire everything and make sure all those instruments worked so that we could have these images. All right. Now let's talk about sound, our fourth type of designer. Sound is the one non-visual design component of theater. Think about it. We talked about scenic, visual, costume, visual, lighting, visual. We could talk about projection, visual. Sound is non-visual. This designer is responsible for arranging and orchestrating all of the aural aspects of the production. Anything we hear, that includes silence. The most common purpose, of course, would be amplification, sound effects, and underscoring. There are any number of other things that a sound designer could be responsible for. Like I just mentioned, silence, which has nothing to do with amplification, sound effects, or underscoring. Just as lighting design was divided into controllable qualities and functional qualities, sound design is also divided into controllable qualities of sound and functions of theatrical sound. What is the sound designer able to control? Directionality. So in what direction is the sound coming from and what direction do we hear it? Clarity, mood, and environment. What's the function? Pitch, volume, quality, direction, and duration. Okay? So, 7 objectives again. First, they want to tell a story. Sound tells a story. And it provides an aural environment in order to do so. They, of course, want to create mood and reinforce style, establish time and place, and that's actually, in many respects, easier to do a sound than it is with lighting, in terms of era, duration, time of day, season even. Just as a lighting designer creates rhythm, the sound designer establishes an auditory rhythm. They also must reinforce the central image and reflect the context of that central image. And of course, provide musical and vocal support. Now, this image is something I want you to be aware of. We're going to come back to it in a little bit. But also because this image is a part of your discussion response for this lecture. As you look at it, I want you to realize that a story can be told just from one image. A significant story can be told. Now, what's the process? What have all of our designers had to do? Read the script and then develop their ideas and feelings about it. Discuss the concept with the director. Nothing new. Consider descriptors to describe the mood, the feeling, and the story. Consider how sound can change or enhance the story, and what should sound accomplish or communicate. And of course, research, design, and implement a soundscape. Light had a lighting plot. Scenic had a ground plan. Costume has a costume plot. Sound has a soundscape. Very specific words. All right, now here are some things I want to just say about how it can change or enhance a story. The type of underscoring or the type of background music or the type of sound effects can completely change or modify an audience's perception of a story being told. Think of this photo. Depending upon what you hear, may put you in a different time period, a different era, may cause you to go from mourning, mourning, so sadness and depression, to horror or something that's scary. All of that can change depending upon what's going on with sound. Sound can change or enhance a story very, very quickly. Here are some very specific terms I want you to know. Motivated sound. When reading the script, the sound designer needs to pay attention to specific sounds that may occur directly in the script. And so these are sounds motivated from the script. A phone ringing is a motivated sound. A character throws open the windows and hears birds chirping. Motivated sound. Okay? Things in the script that directly relate to what is heard. So they are motivated from the script. Environmental sound refers to noises of everyday life to help create the reality of the production. So a character opens French doors, and the script doesn't say that there are any specific sounds, but if we open French doors and it's spring, and we don't hear outdoor environment spring sounds coming in, that will detract for us. So the sound designer might create those sounds to occur once those French doors open. So they create those environmental sounds. Reinforcement is the proper term a designer uses when referring to amplifying the sound of a performer or an instrument so it can be heard by the audience. Reinforcement. And underscoring is adding music between or under scenes to help develop, illuminate, and reinforce the mood and style of the production. Now, there are a lot of software, different types of software and websites you could go to work with sound on your own if you wanted to. Audacity is a great free software you can use for editing and layering, and I use Audacity whenever I can. When I've done choreography, Audacity is what I use to create the music for the dances that I choreograph. For sound effects, here are 3 good examples of free websites where you can get downloads from. And usually all you have to do is just sign up. Yeah, that might mean you get some emails, but you're not paying. You can go to freesound.org, sounddogs.com, or soundbible.com and get sound effects. At freesound.org, you can type in anything almost and up comes something. And then for underscoring, Ben Sound is a site I've used and I know other designers have used in order to get royalty-free music. There's also a free music archive that is royalty-free or Creative Commons music, and MuseOpen also has royalty-free and Creative Commons music. Okay. Now, what technology is used? Of course, microphones, and there are different types of microphones. There's a shotgun mic, so it's a pointed mic that is directional and it's like a shotgun to one area. There are general mics that might be put on the floor and they are trying to take in a wider range of sound. Body mics, and body mics come in different types as well. Loudspeakers are placed in specific locations on the stage or over or near the audience to allow for surround sound or practical effects or reinforcement. So for example, if there's a phone ringing, instead of having that come through every single loudspeaker, a loudspeaker of some size might be placed on the set near where the actual phone prop is so that the phone ringing sound comes straight from that speaker. And so the sound designer can program the sound board, sound console, just like you have a lighting console, there's a sound console, so that that phone ringing comes only out of that loudspeaker. Okay? Recordings are used. So you might want to use playback systems like SFX or QLab. QLab I've used. It's great. It's wonderful. QLab only operates on Apple products. So if you are in a theater that does not use Apple products, then you can't use QLab, which was a challenge I encountered for the production I directed recently. That theater was an all PC theater and not an Apple theater. So engineers operating the sound console during a performance mix all the sound elements together to create blended smooth sound. Now, sounds can be found, they can be created, they can be recorded, or they can be purchased. And when working with music for underscoring or even sound effects, the idea of copyright must be considered and addressed. And that's why I showed you here different websites for sound effects and music underscoring that have free downloads or royalty-free examples that you can use. If you've ever done a video and uploaded it to a YouTube channel and you've incorporated music that you have and you got pinged for doing so, well, that was because you were using copyrighted music and you don't have necessarily the copyright license to do so. So if you use copyrighted music or sound effects, you have to get a license and prove that you have that license in order to make use of that stuff. If you got royalty-free, you'll have royalty-free documentation generally. Now, we're going to consider a sound designer's work, a sound designer friend of mine by Jo Sanburg. But first, we're going to take a look at freesound.org. Okay. So, freesound.org. You can go here. There are forums and people and all kinds of things. All right, I'll click OK here. I'm going to type in rain, and we get 9,547 sound effect options of rain. There's heavy rain. There's rain falls against the parasol. So let's hear heavy rain. Let's hear rain falling against the parasol. Versus, okay, here's raindrops and here's rain and thunder. And let's hear this heavy rain sound. All right. So the point is, freesound.org, type in what you're searching for, and you get thousands of options. Then you can download them. But I want us to take a look at Jo Sanburg. Okay, Jo Sanburg is a designer I have worked with. She is a lighting and sound designer and is an assistant professor of lighting and sound design at Northern Kentucky University. We're going to focus on sound design. Now, on her website here, we've got sound design for the play Anonymous that she has done, Secret in the Wings. Secret in the Wings was, I just showed you the lighting design I did, where I was the production manager for. There's Henry V, I Need My Monster, Honda Cog Ad, and Calvin and Hobbes, 39 Steps, Adventure Through Inner Space, Gumball Wars. Okay. Let's go to Anonymous. All right, Anonymous is a play by Naomi Izuku. And here was the concept. A young man's memory and a family's need to connect. Anonymous is a play of the mind, specifically the mind of Anon. The impulse and deep-seated need to remember is at the heart of the human experience. Trauma interferes with memories and human connections, and creates thoughts which are fractured, broken, or hidden. Anon has a strong will to find the answers and the need to discover that which is hidden, fix what is broken, and heal. My sound design for this production mirrors the journey into Anon's mind and memories. Realistic soundscapes, environments, music, and effects are presented originally as fragments, enveloping the audience in this young man's disorientation and experiences, ultimately coming together as Anon finds his truth and his mother. So memory was a significant part of this. We're going to listen to just a couple examples. So this is the sound effect that Professor Sanburg created for a scene in which we hear auditorially moving from war to a sewing factory. Okay. And I want to now play Namasani song. For Namasani song, using a predominantly pentatonic mode, she composed this, keeping in mind that is a song from generations past. Okay. All right, so those are theatrical examples. Now, some other examples I want to show you that she has done is the Honda Cog ad. I'm hoping this comes up. No, maybe not. Shall we try Gumball Wars? All right, we'll try Gumball Wars. Everything here auditorially that you hear, she created. Okay, I'm going to just pause there for a minute, and we're going to go to one more Mindstorm. I mentioned earlier in the lecture, we come back to this photo. So Professor Sanburg used this photo to create musical underscoring that combines a mysterious and eerie soundscape as a young woman's peaceful life crumbles into isolation and madness. This is what Professor Sanburg did. You need to think creatively and independently yourself in order to answer the discussion response. I want you to hear just a portion of what she created. All right, there are 4 more minutes of this. If you want to hear more of her sound designs, go to josanburgdesigns.com and you can check out her line design, sound designs, compositions, and her artwork as well. I suggest you give it a try and take a look at those. All right, and so with that brings us to the end of this lecture about lighting and sound design. I hope that you have a new appreciation for the work that lighting and sound designers do, a better understanding of their work, and that you now can think about the work that they do the next time you go to a concert, a museum, even an athletic sporting event, and of course, any theatrical production you might see. All right, take care, everyone. Have a good day. Until next time.